In this week's episode of Zealous Podcast, I get to have a little, double feature when it comes to youth training. I've got Bobby Smith, who is with Reach Your Potential Training, or RYPT, RYPT, in the first half of this podcast. And in the second half, I get to hang out with Lance Walker with Michael Johnson Performance. And, Lance has quite a storied history of training and conditioning, not only the youth, but athletes like the Dallas Cowboys. I hope you enjoy it. In fact, if you enjoy it so much, don't forget that later this week, Thursday, we will have that September 30th, the Meeting of the Minds on performbetter.com, where Bobby, Lance, and two others will have a little forum where they talk more about youth training. I hope you enjoy. You were up, was it Oregon or Oregon State? Where are the Olympic trials held?
Oregon.
Javelin, huh?
Yeah.
So are you and Bill Parisi kind of like chums? Because you did speed school and Bill was a javelin thrower and all that?
Well. And my first year after I graduated, I trained with Martin Rooney for a year.
Sure.
So Martin Rooney for there, and he's a javelin thrower too. So I got to know Bill pretty well.
Right on. All right. And so you got first in the 2008 Olympic trials for javelin. Even with fierce headwinds, you had your personal best that day. But what happened after that? You went to the 2008 Olympics?
I did not. So unfortunately, I didn't qualify for the Olympics, even though I won the Olympic trials. But it got me into the Olympic Training Center. So I was a full-time resident there, training with Olympic gold medalists. Wow. And that's where I really started to learn a lot.
So is that in Colorado Springs?
No, that was in Chula Vista, California, Southern California.
No kidding. So Olympic Training Center is in Chula Vista?
Yes.
For javelin at least, and probably for some other field events?
Yep, track and field athletes, that's the hub for
Gotcha.
Olympic Training Center.
What was that like?
It was, so what I tell people, it was kind of like going to college without going to school, without going to classes. So like we'd wake up, have breakfast, then we'd train, then we would recover, eat, then we would have another session, we'd eat, hang out. Like it was awesome. It really was. And it was like a great group of guys and, athlete females there as well too, that we were training with. So that's when I felt like I learned to become a track and field athlete. And that's when I wanted to, take back and, start my own business and start teaching, young high school athletes how to run and how to jump and how to move.
Fantastic. So that brought you back to the East Coast.
That and, my girlfriend at the time, now wife. Yeah.
Yeah, they have a tendency to do that to you, don't they?
Yeah. But I love California. I know you're out there too. Like it is great. Like we just went out there for a vacation and I love visiting, but like New Jersey's my home.
I got you. Yeah, definitely. At least it's one coast or the other, right?
That's right. Yes.
Where did you go to school?
I went to Monmouth University.
Monmouth? No kidding.
Right by the beach.
Yeah. Right on. Anyway, so then you followed Bill and Martin onto the stage to Perform Better.
Oh, well, yeah. Eventually then, like I remember when I was just starting after I got back from the Olympic Training Center, then I went out to Australia. I was training in Australia. Then I brought that coach back here to New Jersey and he was training me here. And I was kind of like hand picking my wife's best athletes because my wife is a sports physical therapist. And I have now like my original 7 girls that I trained that are now like next month, I'm actually going to one of their weddings. I trained them all the way when they were sophomores in high school. And now they've seen them through, graduate and move on to, become young professionals. So
fantastic.
Yeah. And then, meeting up again with Martin and Bill. And I was like, am I going to open up a Parisi or do I want to do my own thing? And, kind of steered into my own thing. And I remember meeting with Bill and Martin and like one of the biggest pieces of advice I took from them was, if you could do it yourself, do it. He's like, don't take out investors unless you really have to. And I was like, I appreciate, your honesty, Bill. And I thank you. And like, I know I was going to go into business, one of my friends at the time and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I'm so thankful that I did it.
Yeah. Being a business owner, you learn from others' mistakes and you learn from the ones you make yourself. But so tell me about RYPT, RYPT.
Yeah, so RYPT, we're a sports performance company, based out of Tinton Falls, New Jersey. We're going on 10 years of operation now.
Congratulations.
And specialize, thank you, specialize in, youth athletics. And it's just the fundamental values that we're teaching these kids, how to run, jump, lift, throw, and change directions properly. And it's been definitely a dream come true and a blessing that we've been able to operate and, survive this long, especially through everything that's gone through. And I don't even have an adult population. Like, I truly only see college, high school, middle school kids. Like, we do have some active adults for some personal training, but we had an adult population and it just wasn't working out. It was more of a headache than anything else. And we kind of just said, you know what, after COVID, it was like, let's cut our ties with it and just focus on kids.
So that was going to be my question. Like, what's the youngest? So are you talking like 12, 13-year-olds or younger than that?
Well, we do have what we call like a mighty rip. So even like my son's in first grade, he comes to it, but it's like third, fourth, and fifth graders. And we have that twice a week. And then we have our middle school athletes, sixth, seventh, and eighth. And then our high school kids are our bread and butter. So 9, 10, 11, and 12. So those grades.
I love talking about youth sports conditioning and just youth strength and conditioning because, well, for so long, they just miniaturized whatever adults were doing. In fact, I remember going to fitness conferences back in the 90s and early 2000s and walking through exhibit halls and seeing all of this circuit training equipment, all the selectorized equipment. And there was one company that literally just miniaturized every single piece of equipment, turned it into some primary colors of red, yellow, or blue. And it was all for kids. It was like, okay, we're taking the asinine concepts of adult fitness and we're just going to put it onto our kids. But obviously that's not what you guys are doing. What's the fundamental philosophy that you guys are working with RYPT?
Yeah, and our sessions are, based for our high school sessions are 90 minutes. And we run around the high school season. So currently we're on week 3 of a 12-week program for our fall season. And our athletes predominantly do twice a week. So our sessions on day 1 is either Monday or Tuesday, and then day 2 is Wednesday, Thursday. So someone will sign up, they'll do Monday, Wednesday, another person will sign up Tuesday, Thursday. So it's kind of like an athletic factory, if you will, where they come in, we have our designated dynamic warm-up area for 15 minutes. Then we have a 21-minute of speed and agility section broken down into 3 sections: mechanics, integration, application. So basically slowing the movements down, teaching them the body positions, then moving a little bit faster, and then, competing and having fun with it. Then we'll go into our plyos, predominantly like 9 minutes long. We'll do an upper body plyo with a med ball throw, lower body plyo with our jumping. And that's where we like to work on, not only linear and lateral, but working on rotational as well too, and even some hopping, one leg to the, staying on that same leg. And then we'll go into the weight room. So we run kind of like a college-based program, if you will, watered down, where, we're teaching them, 3-dimensional fundamental movement patterns, starting off with our explosive lifts, followed by some type of an auxiliary movement to activate them to get ready for the major lift of the day. So day 1, for example, we're doing some type of dumbbell snatch variation, followed by some type of fire hydrants, get those glutes ready. Then we'll go into our unilateral push for a split squat variation for our A athletes. So an A athlete is someone that's been there, this is their second or third season. So usually junior, senior type athletes. Freshmen, sophomore are going to be our B athletes. So all that's telling me this is their first season. What we start off with them is going to the bilateral goblet squat, progressing them into a front squat. Then we'll go into our B2, some type of core. We really like the anti-extension on day 1, some type of body saw plank variation. And then we do full body. So we have a lower body push, then we'll follow by an upper body pull going into a chin up variation. So then that's followed by B block. Then we'll go into our C block, then the auxiliaries to stay balanced through the day. So we'll do some type of hip hinge, RDL variation. So for our B athletes, we're doing like a band pull through, just teaching them that hip hinge. And then for our A's, we're doing 2 dumbbell, 3-second eccentric, and then followed by some type of overhead press now going into our dumbbells. So that's like nonstop, house music's flowing, we're running, sweating, having fun, and then we'll follow up with some conditioning. And it's like, it's an awesome environment. Like, great kids that come in here. Not everyone's a great athlete, goes D1, but the kids that come in there work hard and they just want to get better.
That's fabulous. I love how you laid it out. And obviously it's completely comprehensive. I'm curious that most of these are probably multi-sport athletes rather than being single sport.
That's what we specialize, field and court sport. So currently right now we see basketball, we'll have our baseball, we'll have all our cross, and then, then now is kind of like our slower season because a lot of our athletes are soccer, football, field hockey. So like we're very seasonal. We're winter, summer, we're rolling. So for example, this past summer, we had 345 athletes signed up for our program. Right now, we're like a little over 100.
Got you. So we are talking about mainly conditioning for pre-seasonal conditioning, not necessarily in-season conditioning.
We do have some in-season athletes, but very few. Like it's just, mind-boggling that these kids work so hard in the off season and they just let it go. But we can only do so much that, ingrain into them that you need to keep training. But at the end of the day, it's just schoolwork, games, practices. It's just, they can't get to the gym.
So you must have a certain amount of buy-in with the specific sport coaches, especially at the high school level, and as well as the ADs, the athletic directors. How do you get your foot in the door at the different schools? I'm kind of curious because we've got several schools around here, and it's not the easiest thing that you might imagine. I mean, I know a lot of coaches are always looking for volunteers and for help and so on, but when there is kind of maybe there's a dollar sign attached to this, it's a slower process. But how do you do that?
I think, what we've had success for, especially in the beginning, is I would go to my athletes' practices or even go to their games and then talk to the coach after. I remember, for example, one of my original 7 girls, Olivia, she was like, my coach wants to know who you are. Like, can you come to a game or practice? So I remember going to a game and he's like, Olivia has changed phenomenally. What have you done with her? And I was like, coach, explain the program. I can do this with any of your athletes as well too. Feel free to send them. And next thing you know, we get that group of, athletes coming into us. And it's just word of mouth, like anything else, word of mouth. We give our kids t-shirts, they're walking around. And it's that fun environment that it's tough to emulate,
Yeah. Now, do you do off-site training too? Like, do you go to campuses?
Yeah, we went to, for example, this past summer, we went to a local high school, trained their football team, did some speed and agility. But predominantly, like what I tell the, coaches is that the best program is at our facility, and then the coach was like, well, I can't get all the kids there. And I was like, well, I'd rather have more kids, go here. So we did that speed training in the summer. And then next thing you know, I already have kids hit me up saying, when is the winter training? We want to come to you. So it's like in the summer, like Rocky, like my hours double. Because now my hours of operation, I'm in the morning, I have night classes, but now at school, like my first class is at 3:30. So I got to wait for the kids to get out of school.
What size facility do you have, square foot wise?
Just under 16,000 square feet. So it's really big.
Dude, that's huge.
Yeah.
Oh so my God. You must be in one of like the chemical warehouses, right? You're over in the chemical plants of New Jersey, or where are you?
Yeah, like we're in, we do have some warehouses around us, but I'm blessed to have my wife's business housed inside our business as well. So she runs, a physical therapy practice. She has 5 physical therapists. She has some of my strength coaches as well. And like our atmosphere together is like none other. It's just like a college training room where she just had literally 6 new ACLs come this week. Just kids getting hurt. So she specializes in youth. ACL.
I don't want to throw you on the fire here, but any of those your clients?
No.
Good man. All right. And so they probably will become your clients, I would imagine.
Hopefully, but a lot of times, like they've been there like for, 7 to 9 months, they're like, let me just get out of here. But then they'll come back, they'll come back and sign up. But yeah.
Wow, that sounds like a fabulous, really all-inclusive operation between your wife's services, her PTs, the strength coaches, and then flowing into the group conditioning that you're doing. So with the sports, you mentioned field and court. So we're talking, I mean, obviously tennis and basketball, other court sports that you consider right now?
Yeah, I'd say that. And then just soccer, football, baseball. Then you have field hockey, lacrosse. Those are like our predominant sports because we don't hit the weight room until 45 minutes in. And predominantly we see a lot of females because of that. And it's because we're warming up, we're doing our speed agility, we're doing our plyos. And you get these, young adolescent males that just want to lift weights. And when I tell them, like, if you want to get your bench bigger, if that's all you're focused on, you're going to be sitting on one. Because, I played football at that college level. I still have friends that are coaches. Not one ever asked me how much they lift. It's how well they bend, how well they move. What type of kid are they?
Exactly. Ah,
Yeah.
fabulous. Now, what do the Perform Better meetings of the minds? You're part of that.
Yeah. So that's going to go
And
on next week. We have a great, lineup as well as not just myself, but Lance, we have Nicole, Matt as well too. And we're talking about youth training. And I know they all do that as well too. So definitely, looking forward to that and just learning from them as well too. I've sat on some of their, talks as well and really looking forward to that.
so, yeah, I spent some time down in Oceanside, not far away from where you were in Southern California, there at the Titleist Performance Institute. And at the time, Dr. Greg Rose, another Perform Better presenter, was talking about training windows of opportunity for youth and long-term athletic development of our youth athletes. And he was talking about different times based on the growth rate of each individual, but there are going to be times where they're more likely to be affected by mobility training or strength training or endurance and coordination and speed, agility, quickness, that type of thing. Do you follow along with a little bit of that, like your middle school athletes and your high school athletes? Are the programs going to vary based on their age or their growth rate? And the same for your JCs, your junior colleges, or whomever you're training that level?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Everything gets, watered down. But like I said before, like we have our 10 pillars of performance that we do, and we still follow those fundamental movement patterns. So it's like everyone's going to squat, hinge, push, pull, vertical, horizontal, working on our core, working on explosive lifts. And it's like now the degree of the advance of the movement depends on the age. So like, for example, with our middle school kids, their explosive category might be a med ball throw, might be a sandbag clean. But now with our high school athletes, now we're doing hang cleans. In our advanced high school athletes, we're doing block cleans. With our college athletes, maybe we're doing complexes with them. So everything still follows underneath that movement pattern. It's just the degree of level how we're going to change that for the kids.
All right. Now, if we took those 10 pillars and put it into a pie chart, does your program allow for certain wedges of those pies to expand and time and focus? Or do you try and keep it just an even amount of time regardless? For instance, like I got a kid who can't touch his toes and to save his life. Now, it could be a little bit of core activation. Obviously, it could be some flexibility work, but might you start to widen the amount of time you're working on core strength, intrinsic strength, and maybe a little bit more in flexibility? Or is it just like, okay, we'll hit the big buckets no matter what, and then over time we're going to see some good benefits regardless?
It's hitting the big buckets. That's what it is. It's hit those big buckets. And then if we have, especially what I see is a lot of young female athletes coming in, and it's just, man, their knees are hitting when they walk in the door. So then it's just, give them that mini band and get to work on giving them some extra homework, working on extra rotation of their hips and getting their glutes stronger, getting them hip lifts, and make sure we're strengthening that posterior chain before we can start advancing there. And that's, like, I would say the biggest thing. And then obviously, like most people, lack of range of motion in their ankles, that's going to cause them to have lower back pain. So working on some knee drives, giving them some extra homework with that as well too. And it's big buckets. You fill that in and you're going to see big results for anyone, I feel.
And then how do you determine when it's time to refer to your wife or her crew of PTs? Like there must be a screening process, whether you use your own particular in-house screening that you've developed or somebody else's. What's the process there?
I think when it's something that's out of the norm. Like, so one example, I recall one of the basketball players, man, I was working with her for a month and I was like, man, her hamstrings are extremely tight. Something's going on here. Like I haven't seen this poor of a hinge pattern from some advanced athlete in a long time. And I was just like, I went into my wife and I was like, I need help. Like I need help. This is out of my, and then her young PT was like, let me see, and started working with her. And it was like, yeah, she's got some really bad, hamstring tightening, not only just put the posterior chain, everything, couple sessions with that, and boom, saw a difference. But it's like,
love it.
now that I've been in it for a long time, like, like when we got to know where our strengths are and where we got to separate. And, I can see now, like when it's like, or like someone's shifting bad in a squat and you're like, what's going on, man? Like, all right, I'll elevate the heels, but you're still shifting. What's going on? Let go check the PTs out,
Yeah. Well, you mentioned you made it a point to go to some of your athletes' games and matches and tournaments and so on. Do you have? I mean, do you encourage that within your team of trainers too? Like, can if you can get on the sidelines, get over there. Do you have your small army of trainers going out?
Who's coaching that class for the summer? So, like for example, we had a local high school soccer team and field hockey team. Then we had a local football team. Then we had another local soccer team, another local field hockey team. Whoever's that coach of that summer, then they're in charge. Like I'm in charge of saying, hey, you got to get to their game this fall. What's going on? Let's check the schedule. When can we get you out to go check one of their games out?
Very good.
Yeah.
All right. So
you want to see your product. You want to see your product. Not only you have worked with these kids all summer, you haven't seen them in a while, and then it's like, man, you want to see what you did with them, see the results on the field.
Beautiful. Now, do you work with the athletic trainers at the high school levels too?
I would say more my wife does than I do. She definitely sees them because it's a lot of them refer to her. Because that's not their expertise either.
Certainly. That's great to know. So it really, you've built a team approach, a network of professionals that reach out to the community. I guess that's one of the things that I'm taking away right now. We had a chiropractor actually has a podcast that I was recently on, and he is himself trying to get into the youth sports arena because he really wants to help as many young athletes as possible with what his skill set is in regards to chiropractic medicine. And he's just wondering, how do you get your foot in the door? So for those that are in the listening audience that are wondering, how did Bobby do this? Like, how did you go from moving from the West Coast to the East Coast and getting this whole thing started?
Yeah, I think, just like we have a local field that we use sometimes for conditioning, and I just went up to them and was like, hey, is there any way I can help sponsor? What can I do? My facility's right down the road. Is there anything I can do to help? And she's like, yeah, you can put a banner up. We'll put your logo on the back of the shirts, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, great. Is there any way I just can get in front of people? What do you have anything that I could give out, like a free season that I can get in front of your audience and just talk and about what we do? All I need is 5 minutes, and I remember just going to one and they're like, it's going to be a tough crowd, blah, blah, blah. I was like, just give me 5 minutes. And then it just came out there blazing on fire. And they're like, you didn't say you were going to do that. I was like, I just said I need 5 minutes. I'm going to light this crowd up and get them going, sitting up and get them on fire and get that buy-in. And you're passionate, you love what you do and you believe in what you do. And it's like your service is for anyone. And I don't care what athletic ability they have, even if they're not an athlete, this is what I wholeheartedly know and believe that all young kids need. And that's when they feel that passion, they're going to come and buy in. So they're buying you. That's what it is. They're buying you.
Fantastic. Okay. What are you learning new right now? Like, because all the leaders in the industry are not resting on their laurels and they're not just doing the same old road. There's always mentoring. There's always learning. So where are your sights?
I think my sight's more as management. We're looking to get another facility. So now it's going to be, I can't be at two places as one. So how can I become a better manager, better leader? I don't want to say boss, but I think more of a captain, with my crew and my team. And that way it's like, how can I make them better to kind of mimic me, and get them to become the coach they want to be and help as many athletes as we can in our area. So I think I would say more management, definitely, reading. I love reading John Gordon, my mentor, Martin Rooney. Staff read his newest book, High 10, and met with him. And it's just becoming a better coach and leader and mentor that way.
Right on. So when it comes to other programs that are out there, and this is not a bashing session, but what do you think in terms of conventional, traditional approaches to youth sports conditioning? What's missing?
I think the biggest, one of the biggest things is that anyone can open up a facility. There's nothing that's stopping anyone to open up a facility. And it's like, even in New Jersey, you have to be under a licensed hairdresser for a year to even become a licensed to cut hair. So you have to work under someone for a year to be a license to cut hair. but any app can just open up a gym and start training kids, you know?
Yeah. So quality of instruction is going to be extremely diluted and varied, is what you're saying.
Absolutely. And like the parents, do they know better? Some do. There's a lot of information out there, but others, obviously, they have multiple kids. They're looking for convenience, you know? So it's like, well, this gym's 10 minutes away from me, or this gym's a half hour. So what am I going to go with? You know? And it's like, we lose people sometimes because of that. And it's like, well, the only one it's affecting is your daughter. That's what it comes down to, you know? And it's like, if you're okay with that, remember, we do have physical therapy here. So if anything does happen, you know, it's like kind of almost scare them straight.
Wow. Nice. All right. Any obscure sports that are coming across your desk right now? Any athletes coming in, like professional badminton players or curlers or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, we did have our first professional video game person.
Oh,
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Tell me, how do you condition a professional video gamer?
Yeah, a lot of hand-eye coordination we were working with it. Yeah. And our facility doesn't have any air conditioning. So the first session, he like threw up 3 times. And he's like, when my one coach is working with him, he's like, wow. He's like, all I did was a warm-up. I was like, yeah, he hasn't done anything. It's not happening, man.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we're getting a lot of fencers. We've had like maybe 4 fencers sign up for our program. That's a little, you know, odd. That's a little out there. I mean, we have had fencers in the past, but it was like probably in the 10 years I've had 2. So now having 4 in the program at once that's a lot. But
Yeah.
I would say, you know, just traditional, you know, little kids doing everything.
And the nice thing is too that I am going to break away from the PE classes that they have at school, because what you're offering is so much more of what a growing human really needs. You know what I mean? Like physical education classes, for instance, one of my kids, he just finished 2 weeks of swimming, which is great. The kids play in the pool and they have a good time, whatever. But now it's 2 weeks of volleyball. And then it's going to be 2 weeks of tennis and 2 weeks of basketball. It's like, that's great that you're teaching them sports skills, but there's so many kids that are going to fall through the cracks because they don't have the fundamentals that you are teaching the athletes. So it's, in my opinion, like if you want to really educate the physical body, it's not through the games and sports. That's what they could do when the body has become educated. Would you agree?
Yeah, definitely. You know, it's just they're not set up for success. They're not, the gym teachers, you know, like we do have some. We have an organization that, you know, helps with the gym teachers as well, and some are doing an amazing job that are, you know, mandating that they have to have physical education and pushing them into the weight room, but they're not set up for success. You know, like it's not like you have to change, you have to be here every day, blah blah blah. Like, you know, my son personally sees gym twice a week. You know, it's like, you know, like in our program, yeah, we see him twice a week for 90 minutes. There, it's like twice a week, 45 minutes top, maybe. You know,
it's not like, even minimal dosage, right?
Right.
Yeah. So, okay. So not to put you on the hot seat, but do you reach out to physical education teachers in the school systems?
I mean, I know the one personally in my son's school, you know, just,
okay.
You know, that like, and what I did too is before COVID hit and I want to start it up again, was like a before school program. So I started it up before COVID hit. We did once a week and just get the kids moving beforehand. And all the teachers loved it. Loved it. They said that was the best thing for the kids. They were ready to go for the day. Instead of walking in sleeping, they're woken up. You know, they're ready to go. And it was like, and all the parents are already asking me, when are you going to start that up again? When are you going to start that up again? And, you know, and it's just, we have a small community in our town there. And it's like, you know, the principal is like, you're maybe going to get 10 kids. And we got 30. And he's like, I would never have thought that. You know, I was like, there's the start. It's the first year. And it's going to build.
That's fabulous. Yeah, I developed a zero period, as they call it. That, you know, before class really begins, they have, for their first period, there's got to be one before that, right? So they call it zero period. Developed one for my daughter's high school. The PE teacher was very open, and he said, "Hey, would you help develop a year-round program for the zero period?" And so we made quarterly programs that we could just rotate through the year. And I think he's still using them. Kids love it. So I guess, yeah, that's the thing, is that we as fitness professionals, it would be great for those in the listening audience too, to reach out to the physical education teachers, because like you say, they are set up to fail, unfortunately, and we need to help them succeed, because that is our future clientele that they're going to be seeing on a regular basis.
And I think, there's ways to go about it. And I've definitely made mistakes before where it's like, I approach coaches and be like, this is what I do, blah, 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 blah. And it's kind of like they're on the defense. It's like, well, you're saying I'm not doing that then? And it's like, well.
So how do you disarm that situation? What's your approach now that you learned?
I think my approach more is like, how can I help? Is there anything that you're not getting to that I can help with? This is my specialty. This is what I do. Is there anything that you're missing? Is there equipment that you need? Can we do a fundraiser? Can I help with a fundraiser where we can get in together and I can help bring more attention to the physical education program to get you the equipment that you need? And it's like, if you go it's that way, where now we're a team, I'm trying here to help you, not going in, because we all know we're going to have egos. We're going to have people that are with that, that they feel like, well, I can do it all. What do you mean I can't do it all? And it's like, well, that's not what I meant, but I think what I mean now is like coming in and saying, like I said, where it's, how can I help? What is it you're not getting to that I can do? I remember working with a soccer organization. He's like, man, our kids are getting hurt. They're getting pushed around and we can't last all game. So I was like, all right, well, do you think more soccer training is going to help that? And he's like, no. And I'm like, you're right. It's not. So what can we do to help you reduce the risk of injury, improve performance, and help your athletes last all game? And he's like, they probably need some type of a conditioning program. And I'm like, well, I happen to know one.
And how did that work out?
Well, it worked out great. We had them bought in, and then the guy left, and the next thing you know, they're like, we're cutting this program. And it's like, well, I had 130 kids in the fall. You had no injuries, and you guys were playing great. And then I had 20 kids in the spring. Your injuries are up, and your performance is down. Is there a correlation? And the guy's like, yeah, there might be. And I was like, so what do you want to do? Do you want to get the kid back in here and improve performance? Or he's like, well, we need someone to come to the field. And I was like, we can come to the field, but I can't add any resistance to them. We can't get stronger. What do you want to do in the field? And he's like, well, we need more soccer type specific speed drills. And I was just like,
well, that's good to know when to say goodbye too.
Right.
It's one of the toughest things, I think, as a trainer, is to fire your clients. The ones that are non-compliant, that are just not doing what they need to be doing, no matter how much coaching you do for them. Do you run into that?
Absolutely.
Even with the youth?
Everyone does,
How do you handle that?
So it's just, hey, this isn't working out. Your son's not showing up consistently. And it's like, what we would do is just charge you for the sessions that you did and move on, And it's like, I think in the beginning, I wouldn't have done that. Now being, the more the leader that I am today and understanding, because in the beginning I did those headaches, stuck with those people, and it's just, you're hearing them nonstop from the parents, it's like, it's not worth the headaches, not worth it anymore. This is our system. This is what we do. This is how we operate. If you miss a session, you can make it up on Friday. We have another week of makeups for your kid. Well, he has 8 makeups. Well, where were you for the past 3 months?
Yeah. Now, how has, I really am reluctant to bring COVID as a question, but I'm curious because of how kids are affected through the school system and all the restrictions that were applied in your area. How were you affected by that when it comes to training the kids?
First we did a lot of stuff online. I feel like everyone did. We ran our Zoom classes and we were doing something, and a lot of the kids were very thankful for that, and then in the summer we trained all the kids outside. We said, all right, we can operate outside, start training kids outside. And I don't think, obviously we took a hit, but, we weren't affected by that. And I feel like our kids have, bounced back and stronger from it.
That's great. So no pushback from the community when it came to that, no major concerns. And then you were mentioning, okay, strength training. So you were lugging equipment outdoors all the time.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, from a business perspective, talk about wear and tear on equipment you weren't expecting.
Yeah.
What were the go-to tools that you would take outside, just out of curiosity?
Dumbbells and bands and med balls.
Yeah. Easy, portable.
Right.
doable. Everybody can use them.
Yeah.
Very cool. And so, how has it changed these days? You're back indoors, obviously, right now. Are
Yes.
there any restrictions placed on you? Because out in California, there's a mask mandate essentially for anything indoors. Do you guys have that?
And now when there's rigorous activity, so we have the garage doors open, fans blowing, everything going, but you still get some people that are cautious and they're like, all right, then this isn't for you. That's it.
Yeah.
Like, not, this is what we do. This is the procedures that we're still taking. But if you don't feel safe, then this isn't the program.
As some trainers, including myself, with this whole thing going online, opened up a new avenue of, I guess you'd say, a revenue stream, where now I've got clients from all over the country, if not the world, that can use our services through online appointments. Did you pursue that at all, or have you kind of closed down the online because it's not necessary?
I hated it personally. It just,
Did you?
yeah, we got kids. We got to teach them how to move.
Yeah.
There's only so much that you can do on a screen. But I mean, it's great for a different population, and it's great to that
Sure.
now trainers can have other avenues of revenue. But for me personally, I was just like, we're done. I don't want to do it anymore. If they had the option, obviously we want to be in person, and then the
Yeah.
kids be around one another. It's just a fun environment.
Yeah, I think there you go. There's the key right there, is making it fun, and it's not drudgery. And dating back to the Titleist Performance Center, they've got a junior golf program, and none of it is really about golf. They don't have the kids just standing on the driving range hitting balls, because that's why kids didn't want to get into golf. It's just boring to go out there and hit balls. So they made it into obstacle courses and a whole bunch of different things, and it actually made it fun. And it sounds like the way you've got going on is actually a really nice, organized way of rotating from one area to another and making sure that they're staying upbeat and energized through their entire session. So I imagine, what's the end result after one of your athletes has finished their 90 minutes? Are they collapsed on the ground, not wanting to do anything, or are they feeling inspired, like they're up for anything coming their way?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of our basketball players right now, they're going to their games, they're going to practice, so it's like they're ready to go, and like definitely leave them inspired. And sometimes, parents come in and like, why is my son not sweating, getting carried out of this place? And it's like, this is an educational learning program.
Good for
Anyone,
you.
son or daughter, tired. That's not what we're about. We're teaching them fundamental movement patterns to make them more athletic for the long run.
Bobby, I love hearing that. I do, because there is this mentality that has permeated our culture as we get more sedentary, as we get less active and more overweight. We suddenly feel like we've got to do this amazing about face and go super high intensity just to kind of balance out the fact that we're all lazy asses, right? But
Yes.
That's not the case. The fact that you've got an educational forum in which you can stimulate, educate, motivate the young athletes of today, that's a great recipe as far as I'm concerned.
Appreciate that. Yeah. And definitely, like, even like walking into the facility, it's just like, man, even my wife and I are just like, we're making this work, and it's like, I couldn't imagine myself doing anything else.
All right. Okay. Just to scratch your head for a second, what are you missing? What's the thing that you're going, I really wish we had this, or I want to be doing this in the future? Is there anything you're missing?
The only thing, like I said earlier, is like having another facility. So currently, like, we moved into a new location a couple years ago, and now, this is like 25 minutes away from our facility or where we live. And this community is like, it's a little far, like that's kind of far. So like, if we had a closer location to where we live, I feel like now I could help more people that in the community where I live at. So I think that's the only thing I'm missing, is getting that second location for me and my wife, in this way that we can even plant our roots even more into our community.
Fantastic. All right. So for those in the Jersey area, and for the tri-state area, we'll throw that in there. And if you're willing to make a little bit longer commute for your kids' health, wellness, and future, how do you get to RYPT? Where do you go? What do you do? What can we see online?
Yeah, I mean, our Instagram, we do a nice job there. IGotRypt.com, or at IGotRypt. our website there as well too. And it's like, I think the biggest thing now with our kids, like we just keep it on Instagram. For parents is Facebook, kids is Instagram, and we try and do a nice job with our stories and putting everything up so they can stay relevant in our content.
And for those that aren't watching this on YouTube, but are just listening to the audio only version, RYPT is actually spelled RYPT, which stands for what?
Reach Your Potential Training.
Reach Your Potential Training.
Yeah.
Man, this is good. And then you're going to be in the Meetings of the Minds. That's going to be September 30th, Thursday. And that's, that's 11 a.m. Pacific time. So, 2 p.m. Eastern. And you can go to performbetter.com and listen to Bobby and 3 other presenters talking all about youth sports conditioning. I definitely am looking forward to that. So, hey, Bobby, thanks for being on.
Yeah, appreciate you reaching out, and thanks for following up, and glad we can make this work.
Me too. And now it's time for part 2 with Lance Walker. And remember, you can get the free app for Perform Better and listen to a whole bunch of presenters that they've been on the training summits and soon to be Meeting of the Minds. How did you get to be with Perform Better? How did you make that connection? Because you've been speaking for them for a while.
Yeah. I was a strength conditioning assistant coach in the collegiate ranks for a while at the University of Oklahoma, and we had always done business with Perform Better for things there. I didn't know, it was Perform Better and then Power Systems. There was a bunch of different, it was like, hey, they're all, just order for the best prices and that. So I never thought much about it until I had my own spot, and then I became a strength conditioning coordinator at a high school in Oklahoma, and we were building a new facility. So I was put in that position for the first time of building my own facility, and and started, rehashing some of my learnings from OU and some of those folks that we worked with there, and called Rob Milani. And this would have been early 2000s, like 2000, maybe 2000, maybe 99, 2000, somewhere in there. And ordered my first order from Rob, and he and I kicked off a friendship at that point, and have been doing business with them really ever since. I've done 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 facilities, I think now. Everything from a small gyms up to there was a 100,000 square foot facility in Carrollton, Texas that I consulted and built on after leaving the Cowboys. So always gone with Perform Better. It was interesting. I would always go to the conferences and listen, the speakers. I was always listening to, whether it's Mike Boyle or Gray or Gary Gray or all the who's who. Lauren Seagrave even used to come and talk to those things back in the day, and always enjoyed that too. And I was always kind of a student and a hack and stealing from people and watching them. But it was funny. One time I asked Rob, I said, hey man, at some point I'd like to get into that gig, and it was way early. It was way too early. I mean, I was trying to get people to listen to me instead of just doing really good stuff, and then them asking me that somebody should listen to you because you're doing good stuff. And it was a great discussion that Rob had with me, and basically said, basically in a nutshell said, when you're somebody that somebody's going to want to listen to, we'll call you and talk to you about it. And so I harped on him for a little bit about it, but then I was like, what? He's exactly right. Go out and be really damn good at something first, and stop trying to look for the limelight. Instead of, the limelight will come find you. And I think that was a really good, a good thing that Rob was in my life, and Chris and Aaron and all the folks that I've worked with since then. That relationship has always been great. It's a people first business, and I love that. And now it's an opportunity. It's like, hey, people want to listen to what I have to say, and I really like that, even if it's a really small percentage of the Perform Better family that wants to listen to what I have to say. I get great feedback from those that listen and say, hey, I really got something from that, or that's really helping me in my day to day with what I'm trying to do. So I think I feel a little bit of a niche, maybe a specialty niche in some ways, and happy to play that role, because it's wonderful for me to now. I feel like it's given back, and it ultimately helps. It ultimately helps me. It helps me question my own stuff and other people's stuff in a fresh way. And it's a real blessing to work with those folks.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. Yeah, one of the best ways for me to learn is to teach, and so it's a selfish thing that I get back so much. But then again, you learn so much from all the other presenters. It's that's why I keep coming back. It's side note here. I was in Norman, Oklahoma, not too long ago, a couple of years back. There was a NSCA clinic going on, and I was asked to come over and present. So OU, man, that campus couldn't be more beautiful. That's just a beautiful Oklahoma University. Was really nice, and of course, the conference itself was housed in the training area. Boy, if you were a part of that, man, I'm just completely envious of that. It's just, there's something about walking into one of those big training facilities. It's like walking into a toy box. You're going, oh my gosh, look at this, look at that. Especially if you're coming from a small private boutique studio. It's like, oh man, I'd love to be one of these big dogs here. That'd be really nice. So you must have enjoyed your time in OU.
I did. I worked for some really great people. I was brought in as a graduate assistant early days. This would have been 92, 93, somewhere in those years, by a guy named Joe Jurassic, who ends up being the head strength coach for the Dallas Cowboys for many, many years. And another assistant coach that ends up being the head coach there for a while as well, Blair Prince, who a lot of folks probably listening, probably if you do any business at all in the strength conditioning or performance world, you know who Blair Prince is. And if you don't, you should. You need to look him up, because he's a great connector of people and that. So I had the great experience of dealing with those folks. Chris Dawson was also a graduate assistant when I was there, and he's a guy that is now one of the top strength coaches in the country. He was at Kansas State. He was at Kansas with Coach Mangino. Now he's down at UCF having success there. So Benny Wiley, I got to cross paths with him. He's the strength coach at Oklahoma now. And I worked with him at the Dallas Cowboys. So it's a really, Oklahoma is it's really a special place, because there's a lot of special people there, but it is a big time program. The thing that I do remember though is that there's big time pressure there too. I mean, I think that's there's the room and there's all this great stuff and wow, resources, but the pressure that those guys and gals deal with on a day-to-day basis, you got to win. Winning is sort of how you're judged as a performance coach. It's, you can get them stronger and faster and all that, but if you don't win on Saturdays, performance is reality. And I learned really quickly that I don't like that. I like being judged on more objective, quantifiable things that I have control over. And I just felt like at those levels, whether it's Oklahoma or even at the Cowboys, again, great people there as well. There was so much that was uncontrollable, and I'm a control freak. I like to control things. And I was like, gosh, dang, if I show up on Monday and my key doesn't open the weight room because some, 19-year-old dropped a punt that cost us a game, I don't like that. That makes me feel very uneasy. And so I learned a lot of great lessons. And one of them was that, I don't feel that great about that particular type of environment at that point in my life. And so that kind of spurned me to kind of leverage my background for the business side of the world, right? If I do really good, if we can do really, really well at these manageable, controllable things, we should have a good business. We should be able to bring these things. So I like that control. But what I also learned is the business side, as the business side has its own set of stress and challenge. And so there is no utopia out there. There is no, just be really great at training and rehab or whatever, and everything will work out. And there's the grass is greener where you water it. And there's stressors on every street corner. It's just which stress do you want to use as positives, and which ones are going to leverage you out of that. And finding that path has been important. Those important stops with those collegiate and strength conditioning roles and professionals, and even in the clinical setting as a full-time clinical physical therapist, those are all great learnings that I think has just continued to sort of nudge me into what I'm trying to do really well right now, whatever that is.
Well, I can appreciate everything you just said. And it's interesting. You speak to young strength coaches, and there's this romanticizing of getting up into the big leagues, so to speak, and being there. But I don't think they appreciate what you're talking about in terms of the competitiveness and the pressure and the stress that one might feel depending upon how the players and the uncontrolled variables play out for a season. You know, it's curious. I'm kind of scratching my head here because we're talking about Oklahoma University, the football program there, moving over to Dallas Cowboys and so on. Yet this coming week here on Thursday, you and Bobby Smith, a couple others, are going to be meeting on performbetter.com's Meeting of the Minds. And your topic is youth training. Now, I know that the emails went out to the presenters and they said, hey, you know, give us your top 3 topics from this list. And why youth training?
Oh. I think one, I think it's an area of opportunity. I mean, I'm an opportunist. I see an area that is potentially underserviced by our profession. I think that goes across the board from sports science to, you know, sports performance training to strength conditioning to rehabilitation, the physical therapy world. And that's not to say there's not a lot of good people out there working with kids. I don't want to say that. However, I started seeing early on, especially when I went funny way, I went from college strength conditioning. I went back into the high schools and I worked as a high school strength conditioning coach and ran their performance programs for all grades. And I learned very quickly that that from the young ages up until 18, that unbelievable development can happen. 1, and 2, just shrinking and modifying what worked at Oklahoma or whatever, that's not best practice. I mean, it works, right? And I started figuring this out. I was like, dang, this job is it's really cool because I get to influence kids and help them. But I also saw that they just get better no matter what you do if you don't mess them up. And it started to make me worried a little bit. I started thinking, wait a minute, this is kind of a false sense of security. You know, basically whatever I roll out there gets them better. And I started really doing my own diligence on myself because I like to be confident in what I'm doing, that I want to be the best. And I started looking around going, gosh, these are amazing little human beings from ages, 9 to 18. They basically just improve. They would improve if you twiddled your thumbs, 3 times a week for 6 weeks, they'd still get better. And part of me initially was like, this is cool. I'm going to get in this little bird's nest here and it's going to be the easiest job I've ever had. And then I instantly got uncomfortable. Like, this ain't right. There's gotta be some nuances and some better here, always looking for the better. And so I started really quickly figuring out that, man, there's some things that exercise physiology books don't talk about because they don't know about kids,
Such as, what are you talking about?
I mean, you talk about the development of stamina, different elements of stamina, different metabolic pathways. If you do your diligence, you'll start figuring out that there's some real age-specific things that happen naturally, developmentally, that kind of precede some. It's almost like the body is set up as a roadmap. It's like a build, and the body's building itself, and we need to leverage them as where they are in that build process instead of trying to do what the physiology textbook would tell us to do with normal, reference male and female. The challenge was, well, if you applied what I learned at ACSM, no disrespect. I mean, yeah, the exercise prescriptions and all that still works. That it beguiled me into thinking, well, that must be the way it is for kids too, until I started figuring out that there's better. You get bigger return on investment when you start really getting into age specificity. And I saw it firsthand. Not only did I see better results in smaller amounts of time, I started seeing results that violate basic exercise physiology sacred cows that I was sworn to uphold because I'm a certified idiot, right? I'm certified ACSM, NSCA. I mean, you list them. I had a list this long behind my name because I was searching for competence, I think, instead of looking at it going, what's best, not what's good. What's good, that's standard, that's off the shelf. And for kids, what's better? And so we started finding out, and I always was a data guy. So I was always collecting data. At University of Oklahoma as a grad assistant, I was also a published researcher in the HSS department. And so I got in the habit of collecting data and understanding how to how to interpret science and how to do things without, creating these self-fulfilling biases and whatnot. But my data, my personal data, as well as the data of that experience at the high schools and now in the business world, just continues to confirm now that we can improve the outcomes of these young athletes if we start applying things in a more age specific way. So I started seeing it early days. Now I'm starting to see, Rodri Lloyd and some really cool stuff from different labs come, and that's starting to kind of come back and start to support some of these things that we saw as trends, and that we continue to see as really strong trends in our data, on working with thousands of these young athletes day to day. And that's the thing too, Rocky, as you know, all these kids these days, especially here in Texas, they're all training. I mean, lifting weights, you think doing squats at MJP is going to get them better? They're squatting at age 9 here in Texas in some of the most elaborate, strength conditioning programs, better strength programs in some cases than some of the D1 schools. And they're starting that age. So when they come to us, what are they looking for? They're looking for the delta, the difference maker between them and everybody else. And they're already getting great, in a lot of cases, really strong base, level strength conditioning programming or performance training at their schools. So when they come to us, what are we going to do? Do that better? Give me a break. Now, give me a break. I'm not going to take your money and just do what repeat that. They've paid me to find this difference. And so that's forced our hands to say, look, yeah, why would I pay MJP that much to do what I'm doing at school? Because I'm going to do it better? No, we're going to create those deltas that offset if you trust us. And we found those. We found them day in and day out. We're starting to see it find itself in the reference literature as well, even at a very basic level. And what we see there, Rocky, to answer the overall question is we all love kids, and we all see that the kids right now, they deserve better. They deserve high performance training from us.
Yeah.
They don't deserve this. Well, it's kids, just keep it simple, and that's a rationalization of the lazy, my opinion. I mean,
well, I'm
really
glad you just brought up the word I was thinking of, lazy. Just dating ourselves, I guess. Same pursuit of letters after our name. I did the same thing, and maybe it was ego driven. I was pretending that I was more search for information, but actually the more pertinent, the more solid information that I have in education that I have learned, there aren't letters after this. These aren't programs. These are mentors that have really great insight into movement and other things. But I remember reading a position statement through the NSCA about prepubescent strength training. And at the same time, there was this research that came out, and they looked at 2 groups. There was a control group of 12-year-olds that just went out and did nothing but be kids. And then there's this other 12-year-old group that were on 3 days a week of regimented strength training for, I think it was 8 to 12 weeks. There was strength training or testing and assessing at the beginning and at the end. And you're going to say, well, which of these groups were going to have higher strength levels? There wasn't a difference. Just like you said, it doesn't matter what you do with them. They're naturally just going to get stronger because of hormones and maturity and everything else. However, when I noticed, and I think what you're alluding to, is that each individual has a different growth rate and a different kind of maturity rate. So therefore, just saying this is what we're going to do for all 13-year-olds, that's lazy. That's like, no. So I think where you're going to, and correct me if I'm wrong, is each young athlete that comes to you, you're going to tweak their program from an individual standpoint, because some are going to need a little bit more stamina. Some are going to need a little bit mobility in certain areas. Others may need more coordination or motor control. And then this person's going to need a little bit more like motor neurology, agility, balance, coordination stuff. Is that where you guys go?
Yeah, well, I wish we could specialize it for each individual onesie twosie athlete, but me, as a business guy, this, you got to be able to operate at scale.
So how do you scale it? How do you make that work?
So what we got is a system, sort of a templated approach based on, as you said, development age. So that's one of the key areas that we try to assess as accurately as we can is, how old are you? Really, not chronologically, but how old, developmentally are you? And we'll use everything from, Meerwald equations to all kinds of, we're trying to at least get in the wheelhouse, plus or minus 6 months of, if you're 14 chronologically, how old is your body really?
Sure.
And we start there. And that's the discussion that has to be had around, okay, we get a 14-year-old and they're their body is 13.7. They're 14-year-old in our program. They are developmentally, at 14, there. If they fall outside of that offset by more than 6 months, we start to look at now, are they falling into one of these 3 big chunks, these big templates? And the first big template is the early template, that 6 to 9-year-old, range. We call learn to train range, but they're unique animals. I mean, they really are. And I'm talking about 6 to 9 years old developmentally, very unique animals. So that's one tranche of the overall. Then there's that middle tranche that's that 11 to 13 and a half, 11 to 14-year-old. And that's we call that high school prep, but that's basically your circa PHV and peak height velocity for those of you guys that are listening. That's kind of the anchor point that we use to kind of anchor our training to. And then post PHV is the olders, the 15 to 18s. And typically we're using that estimation of when your key big growth spurt, your peak height velocity happens. And we're anchoring what training we do based on where you fall on that continuum from 6 to 18 years old. And inevitably, there's these little decisions that have to be made in certain, transition zones. If you're going to be play down, if you're let's say you're a 13-year-old, but you're a male and you're only in a 12-year-old's body. I don't care if you want to play up. We're going to keep you in our learn to train template because that's going to be where the dosage, the frequency, duration, the dosage, the specific types of training we're going to do with you is very specific to augment this synergistic, what we call synergistic adaptation that we see happening. And it's starting to be kind of bearing this out. We're bearing this out in some of the literature is, hey, the body is naturally developing really, really fast in certain chunks of athleticism at certain times. And so it's not these sensitive periods, it's a sensitive period for aerobics that you got it's a window of whatever, that opens and closes. It's not like that. It's more like a mutual fund, like you're investing. You get a better return on your investment of time, energy, and resources if you put your investment where you get those big returns, right? And the nice thing with kids, no matter where you invest your time and energy, you get a return, right? So it makes everybody look like a genius investor. The challenge that we see is people come to us is they only want to train 1 or 2 days a week. They don't want to train 5 days a week. They don't want to train for 28 weeks. They want to train for 6 weeks at a time because that's the time that they have available. So we've got to be really, really good at investing, right? I can't waste investment anywhere where it's going to have a marginal return. I got to put my investment in areas where I'm going to get the maximum return. And so we portion out then what that prescriptive is in those 3 zones based on their developmental age. And that's where we hammer them. I mean, we hammer in those areas. We're not a shotgun approach. We have specific systems in place, but then within those systems, let's say it's a warm-up. If you're warming up at MJP and you're a learn to train athlete, the warm-up you do is different than the warm-up you're going to do for an HSP or a circa PHV athlete. It's going to be different. It's going to target different things because that's the better investment of your time. Would the same workout work for everybody? Sure, but that's what everybody's doing. They're already doing that. What we're seeing is these opportunities to reinvest in these hot zones, these real hot burning fires. And the more gas we put on that fire, the hotter that thing burns, the more effect we get in that zone. And cool thing is we get cool overlaps into other areas. Like a kid that's a certain age, we know that at a certain age, focus on this element of power, if it's reactivity or stiffness. So let's focus on stiffness. Let's not worry about how high they jump, for instance, if we're doing plyometrics. Let's focus on generating stiffness and reactivity. That's their hot zone. And what's so cool is when you dump more gas on that fire, you get that synergistic adaptation to elements where reactivity and stiffness play, max velocity.
Sure.
So all of a sudden it's this cool, it's almost like it almost helps you in other areas when you really focus on the way the body was set up, I think, to develop. And it was kind of set up to develop in sort of like a construction zone build. The body is really, it's amazing how you set the foundation first and then you put the walls and then you don't go in and try to build the entire house at once. And I think what we've seen is when we get really, really focused in on those specific tranches of age specificity, you get a bigger bang for buck. right? You get a deeper, a hotter burn on those areas. And you know what's the cool part, Rocky? If you work with kids, and hopefully the people that are going to listen to me and Perform Better's discussion here next week will agree. Kids like to have fun, right? They enjoy having, and we all know that. So that's, oh, wow, big deal. They all like to have fun. So you should play games with them. No, I'm not saying that. I'll tell you what's more fun than games is when they don't suck as much tomorrow as they did today. When they're better in soccer tomorrow than they were today, when they're in PE class tomorrow and that mile run that they did feels better and they perform better, that's fun. Fun is not sucking as bad and getting better, faster. Think about that, Rock. I mean, everybody gets better. First time you ever train somebody, the first 6 weeks, you look like a genius, don't you? Because they get better. Yeah. So what? These kids are already training. So now why are they going to come to you? You better show them a return on that investment. And when you do, it makes it more fun for them. And now they're bought into training. Like, holy cow, when I really focus on this stuff right now, I see a big bang for buck on that thing. I see this cool synergistic overlap in the stuff that is important to me. I feel like I've got some control over this. This training is cool. This is fun.
Right on.
It's not something I gotta do. So it's deeper than just, oh, that's Lance, he's crazy and all this. No, we see it with kids. They have more confidence when they walk out because they're like, holy cow, I'm doing something that is not just hard. It's hard, right? But it's actually paying a dividend forward. What a great life lesson for them long term, that they have some semblance of control over their performance. And it's not a beat down. I got to go train because that's what you're supposed to do. No, this is a return on investment. This is a business transaction.
Yeah, I like that analogy. I honestly, of the mutual fund, so much more than training windows that are either open or shut, because that black and white just doesn't seem to fit well, because the body is always able to adapt no matter what. Maybe it'll be in a better place and time to get more return on the investment, like you say, or maybe not, but it doesn't mean that it's still not existing. So I'm curious, Lance, like we started in the early 90s for the most part. It seems like when you're a graduate student there at OU, that was 92, you said. So roughly we both began strength conditioning right around the same time and that. And the kids at that time in 92 are quite different than the kids in 2021. So how have you had to adjust? And I don't mean dumbing down, because I want to say that, because like you say, a lot more kids are training now, but they're training in bodies that are not as, I believe, functionally or structurally integrated or as strong as the kids that grew up without video games and without cell phones and without all this technology. What have you had to do, or if you have you done things to accommodate this new technological generation that we're seeing?
Yeah, no, it's a big challenge. I wish I had the answer, that everybody's wanting to see. Well, this is the absolute answer. It's a challenge. I got my own kids. I'm seeing it with my own kids,
Yeah.
And I see the challenge. I see that that time continues to be the most valuable resource. They've got this, they've got that, they've got band, they've got this, and then they've got their free time, and then their free time becomes different than my free time and your free time. We'd go out and play ball in the street because that was more fun than anything else, or work, for heaven's sake, right? I mean, I grew up on a farm, so thank goodness any free time. What was that? I mean, we never had that. We were feeding cattle or hauling hay. So knowing that we're never going to go back to that, you know what I mean? I mean, just embracing that. So you can talk old school all you want. You need to be doing it. Baloney. Yeah. It doesn't work. So you need to just embrace the fact that this is the way it is right now, and leverage some of those things. So we leverage those things. We leverage technology. So yeah, instead of fighting with that, let's leverage it. Okay, you're going to get on your app and you're going to do, here's an app for you that's going to help with some stuff. Well, I need it to be gamified. Well, okay, earn some points to get a t-shirt, or invite your friends in. You want to play with your friends. Okay, invite your friends in. You got to leverage those things to get at what you want. And that's number one. Now we're learning how to do that with our digital training programs now, is to provide a digital, a truly humanless thing that helps these young athletes develop, knowing that they're not going to spend more than 1 or 2 days a week with us for 6 weeks at a time. So sure. How are you going to augment that? You're going to have to get in where you fit in, and it may be through this silly thing. the other thing too, I think, as we talked about, is kids aren't going to train for, 6-8 hours a week and all that. You need to put in the hard work. Give me a break, man. They're reading the same book like the 8-hour work week book. They're bought into that. Hey, if you're really good at what you do, you should be able to get me a result in less time and less effort. Right. So this whole minimum effective dose thing, and that's, we kind of got to embrace some of that too, because that might be all you get. And if you don't get them hooked on improvement early, I don't care if they suck. As long as they don't suck as bad tomorrow, you're improving them, you're winning, because that will install in them this kind of idea that I can get better. And that's the key to long-term health. I really believe that. I think that the research would support that the more fun they have doing physical activity, the higher the likelihood they're going to do it longer in their life, whether they're elite athlete or not. If it's not fun for them to go out and play Frisbee in the yard with dad, you think they're going to keep doing that with all the competition of other fun stuff going on? Hell no. Give it up. It's not going to happen. So what do? Let's make it fun. How do you make it fun? Give them a return on investment that they're getting better at something. And then show them they're getting better. Hey, look at that. You're, 20% more efficient or whatever. Or you look at, or give them some points or something. I think those are gamifying that, where that's showing progress, installs in them this concept of control, and they're getting better at stuff. I think we got to leverage all those same things that are motivating them to not do that stuff right now for what we do, instead of taking sort of this old school, and I'm not saying all of us do this, but I fell into that for a while, is even with my own kids. You need to work hard. You need to do this. You need to do that. All this stuff that resonated with me as a farm kid back in the 70s. That's ridiculous. You're talking cockroach to them at that point. They don't understand a word you're saying. No matter how many times you say it, it ain't gonna resonate with them. You got to show them a result. Show them some output from this and how it's going to help them. And I think that's on us again to go back and, hey, look, you are 13 years old. You're special at 13. You're going to be different at 14 and different at 15 than you were at 13. And when we start really dialing that in and making it individual for them and special for them, they are special. Let's stop, they're right. They are. I'm a special snowflake. You're exactly right. You are. Let's start treating them like that in our profession, right? Let's embrace that instead of trying to.
Which that just requires so much more energy, right? It's a lot more work, especially if you're going to be in a group setting and providing individual some kind of variable to these kids. I love your analogy of the mutual fund, because in a mutual fund, you've got different investments that make up that fund. And when it comes to conditioning, for a long time, in terms of old school thinking, it was gym time. You're going into the weight room, and there's very little else aside from skill development as whatever player in sport if you need to learn tackling, or you need to learn blocking, or you need to learn throwing a baseball, whatever it is, those are skill developments. And then you go hit the weight room, and then, there's this little mutual fund called flexibility off to the side there, right? Yeah, maybe we'll do kind of like half-hearted, lame kind of group stretching when everyone's really talking and not really feeling and being in their bodies. So what I want to know now is, with your whole mutual fund, what are the different companies you're investing with your athletes? Obviously strength, but it's not the huge kind of major fund that you're throwing all your money in. It's got to have shrunk, because you have 6 weeks, like you say. You've got to have a whole bunch of other things to develop. So what are your funds?
Yeah, it's a great question, and one that, hey, shameless plug, we got a system for this, and so that's something that the listeners of your podcast and at Perform Better, I'll give some specifics on this too, but we've systematized this where we'd like to have other people use it, because it's pretty darn effective, and we all are passionate about kids. So, hey, some recipe type things here, but generally speaking, we break athleticism down into 6 manageable, modifiable, and measurable kind of big, silos, if you will. They're not silos because they're not mutually exclusive from one another, but buckets, if you want to use the bucket term. And strength, speed, stamina, the ones that are kind of the common 3. Then you've got suppleness, movement qualities and things, skill and strategy, the between the ears type stuff. So there's 6 buckets in there that I think we play really good in with kids. And your example with strength is a good one. We break that further into the 3 sort of zones that we feel like are the most measurable, modifiable, and manageable. And that is maximum strength or, absolute strength, those sort of things, speed strength, and strength endurance. So a metabolic quality of strength. So we break that down further. And the reason you do that, those are three, they're all, attached to each other. And the old school person in me would say, well, I just get them stronger and all that other stuff gets better. We've talked about that. Sure. Yeah, great. Okay. That's, congratulations. You're doing okay. What we found is that within each of these silos and in each of those three subcomponents, that's where the magic is specific age, synergistic adaptations in those subcategories. So strength is the example. I'll give you a specific example here. The age 9 to 11-year-old, that pre-PHV kid. And I've got one in my house right now that's just getting ready to move into that circa PHV mid zone there, but she's still pre-PHV, ages 9 to 11 developmentally. Strength, just like all the other elements, is important for her. Speed strength is most important for her. Speed strength. Now, does that say, well, you couldn't do max strength? You can absolutely do max strength with 9-year-olds. You can do it safely, and you get a nice return on investment if that's what you're after. You could do high rep training and just, work on body weight exercises and get them, really tired, and you can get a little bit of a benefit there in strength endurance. And both of those would move the strength needle for that athlete, right? Focus on speed strength with 9 to 11-year-olds.
Okay, I gotta throw a guess in here. So just prior to their peak growth point, the peak growth curve, is that where suppleness comes in?
Yeah, there's several zones of suppleness, and suppleness is broken into mobility, flexibility, and stability for us.
Mm-hmm.
And mobility, sort of that active range of motion, that involves level. Obviously, there's stability, flexibility, it's all mixed up, right? I don't want you to think it's all, individualized, but mobility is actually the first rapid zone of development. And that starts at like six to 9 to 10. So that's why we're getting so much benefit from crawling and going over and under obstacles. You know why? Because your body is searching for experiences to flesh that mobility component out. And then 10, 11, 12, flexibility. And then what you see is the opposite with flexibility is during peak height velocity, guess what happens? That flexibility actually stagnates because of the rapid
needs stiffness.
growth. It's right. And so now you begin stability then starts to take on an important role after, that peak height velocity kicks in. So the body, it's crazy. It's really amazing. It's beautiful how the body was set up to help us develop over the course of our lives. It's almost like in this piecemeal kind of a thing, one builds on the other. And that's the great thing about suppleness is your stability is built on the flexibility and mobility that you've developed through those years and those experiences. That's not to say you weren't developing some stability along the way. That's that synergistic adaptation. It's so crazy. Here's an example of this. Work on the kids' mobility from age 6 to 9 and watch their stability get better. Do your favorite stability test. I don't give a rat's behind what it is. Pick it out of the sky and just focus on mobility with your 6 to 9-year-olds. And then go back and retest your stability test. Guess what happens?
Oh, heck yeah.
Magnified.
Hey, with the more movement, you need more stability.
Your body knows
right?
it's developing stability through its development of mobility early. And people are going to call me crazy. Oh, Lance, you're making this up. You're not. Hey, the nice thing is my data is supporting it. And the even better is new data is starting to support this. It's not just me crazy talking about it. I'm like looking at it going, damn, there's a lot of credence to this now that's coming from folks that are smarter than me. What you do then is you just take that same concept of accelerated zones or hot zones, synergistic adaptations, and you basically create a flow from left to right, from 6 to 18 years old that outlines for you, really, here's your emphasis, coach. If you really want to stay in the hot zones, you really want to stay, I was a farmer, right? And we used to drive combines. You know what a combine is? It cuts wheat and it has a big header in the front. And those things are expensive and they break down a lot. Okay. And it's also real expensive to put gas in those things. And so my dad, when I would drive the combine, he would always harp on me, keep the header in the wheat. You know what I mean? So if you're cutting wheat and half your header's in the wheat and the other half's just kind of out here random, you're wasting those resources. And we think that by doing this, by keeping these developmental ages in mind and top of mind, and then optimizing or biasing our training, that we keep more of the header in the wheat. So we're being more productive with the time and energy and resources that we have. And we've got an entire, from all those different elements of athleticism, we've got age specific biases for every single one of those things.
I love it. I love the fact that we're breaking away from traditional thought patterns of, well, for me, breaking away from the old program designs of Olympic lifting, powerlifting, bodybuilding, and actually just watching the body move and figuring out what's missing in these joint mechanics. What do they really need to do? And the bottom line is the body, the athlete's body, is going to tell you exactly what it needs when you understand what you're looking for. And the same holds true from everything you're saying right there. You know, the body is going to figure things out. What our job is to figure out what is missing or what is needed here at this specific time. And then by doing so, there's your delta variant. There is your change that you're looking for. That's what's going to separate you from everybody else, is the knowledge of when to put what where. And it sounds like you guys have a really good system in place for that. So it's Michael Johnson Performance. And is that the full name of it? I want to get this right.
Yep, Michael Johnson Performance. Michael Johnson, the old gold shoes icon in track and field. For you younger folks that are listening, might not remember Michael, but he used to be a pretty fast guy, still pretty fast. But we've leveraged a lot of his development as well as an athlete, even as an elite athlete, that influences the way that we work with kids as well, especially during that transition from 18 to 21, 22, which we also see incidentally as an additional zone of long-term athlete development that is somewhat misunderstood, and we're fleshing that zone out as well. So that Michael Johnson Performance is the name, and we'll be having a lot of opportunities for folks to take in this, we call it the next gen system of long-term athlete development. We've got a digital format for this. It's basically the internal that we use to teach our coaches. And we've been asked so much about it that we just finally committed it to a learning management system so that people can purchase it and use it themselves. And so if you're a PE coach or a personal trainer or a club coach in soccer, we want to empower you with a system that is implemented into your setting. And the nice thing is, when you refine it, when you make it optimized, you're not wasting as much time. It becomes very realistic for us to implement this really in any setting, because you know exactly, where you need to spend your resources. And these coaches, you guys know it that are listening, you don't have as much time as we used to, and the kids don't either. So you're going to have to make the most use of your time. And this system allows you to really stay in that cutting zone, as well as know where to test your own system. Because if you're a coach, you always want to know, is my system good? Well, gosh, if everybody's getting better, how do you know your system's any good? Well, let me tell you, there's specific zones in there. If this specific area of athleticism, let's say it's speed strength, if you're not seeing huge gains in speed strength at ages X, Y, and Z, I'm talking huge changes, your program is off the rails. It's not optimized. They may be getting better despite your training. So it's a good checkup for us.
That's good. That's okay. So for those strength coaches and sport coaches alike, personal trainers that are listening, where do they get more insight, more information?
Yeah, so you can go, our website is just kind of a placeholder. It's michaeljohnsonperformance.com. There'll be some information in there about education. You can follow me if you want on Instagram, Facebook. Not Facebook, Instagram and Twitter. I'm pretty easy to follow. I don't even know what my handles are right now, but look me up, Lance Walker, as well as MJP Next Gen on Instagram and Twitter as well. We're always kicking out some sort of content teasers on these things. We're not a marketing company. We're a training company. So it's not as slick and sexy as a lot of companies are out there. And to be honest, neither is our content on these courses. It's very much more of a practical, you want to go out and be effective. I mean, here's the toolbox that you're going to use. It's not a glamorous thing. It's not here it is. Here's the toolbox. Here's the reps, the sets, the deliverables, the testing for it. Here's how you implement it into your systems, whether you're at school or whatever. It's a toolkit. because ultimately I'm not trying to, go out there and show you how cool my PowerPoint slides are. I want to empower coaches to use this system for their benefit of their kids. And it's set up just in that way. It's a highly practical piece of kit.
Awesome. Well, I wish you well this week and on in the future, but with the meeting of the minds, that's Thursday, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern, performbetter.com. You can catch Lance on that. And if you get the Perform Better app, you can obviously a little bit later catch recordings of all of the meetings of the minds for this year. And as we know just now, we just got word that the live events in person will be taking place next year. And so we're looking forward to that. Lance, this has been great. I really appreciate your time. And it's great talking shop and learning from the masters like yourself.
Yeah, Rocky, thank you. Thank you for your work in the space. Keep doing it and spreading the good news. We still make huge impact on people and folks like you that are out there letting folks talk about it and be passionate about it and opening up the educational resource for others in the field. It's admirable. We appreciate it very much.